fancy. Yay.
Yeah. Luckily, we're too tone deaf to pull that off.
Let's all get demonetized together.
Yay!
Let's demonetizing.
All right, so we are back in business. We're back in the world of Final Fantasy, and that's about it. Does anybody remember where we are, just for like the viewers at home?
We had
Actually,
just finished this. We had just finished the last.
And no, I have no idea. I've forgotten already.
We had just
I'm supposed to be
finished
writing
the
them up.
first
I haven't finished writing it up yet. Yeah, we finished the first fake ending.
Yes, the
Now
sad
we get to do
ending.
the real endings.
So now we're supposed to collect our like other dudes or whatever the
We're
heck.
expected to feel kind of sad that the first mascot with the bad gimmick died.
Yes,
Something.
yeah, he neared out of existence, so we could live,
Good.
or time could go back and forth. So we successfully got Diablos and Bahamut last time, and it looks like our choices now are Leviathan, and given lightning's involved, I'm going to say a sword-wielding Mirage is Odin. So,
Yeah, probably.
anybody got a choice on who's first?
Let's do Leviathan next.
Leviathan.
All right. We're getting biblical.
Odin feels like a more iconic summon, so save it for last.
Really? I mean, maybe it's because I like Final Fantasy 2 so much, but I always thought Leviathan beat Odin. So
I assume you mean FF4?
Excuse me. Well, I definitely played FF2 first, let me put it that way.
I just want to make sure, and like, yeah, Leviathan, like, I think that's like the peak of its importance.
That is probably accurate, considering he's like the major thing that impacts everything. Like, he
And then
really
he just
screws
kind
up
of-
Cecil's
like,
life.
There's several games I feel like he's just not even in.
Yes. But, I mean, this game seems to, like, really lean on 8 in a lot of ways, and I think all these guys were an 8, even if Odin didn't have a good time in that one.
Leviathan is absolutely an 8. I remember fucking Leviathan is your reward for finishing one of Yuffie's side quests in 7, and that's
Yes,
what it's always
he's
been
the
right.
patron saint of Wutai,
Yeah.
which is one of the
Yeah.
few summons that, like, actually kind of impact anything in Final Fantasy VII.
Doesn't really impact anything, but like it's one of the few that has like lore behind it, I guess.
Yeah, like, most of the time, like,
Everything else is,
Bahamut's
you
just
held up the rock and something came by.
Yeah, no, Bahamut is just like a space dragon, and it's like, yeah, there's a space dragon
There's
rock.
3 Bahamuts. Doesn't who gives a shit? One of them has 6 wings. It owns.
This is true. You can't not own when you've got 6 wings. Apparently, this story so far is just Ferris shouting at DC angrily.
Haven't we all done that at least once? Return from whence you came.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've still got wedding on the brain. We actually went to this bay area where, complete with the log wedding dress, the pictures definitely look like she's, my dear bride is a crying widow yelling out to the sea. So you'll forgive me if that's stuck in my head.
Here's the hoping
That's
that
reasonable,
never
yeah.
becomes reality.
I was killed an hour after my own wedding. It's kind of depressing.
Oh, that's dark.
It's just for a good picture.
I mean, I hope the picture was worth your death.
I mean, I hope so too. I guess I'll find out eventually. So apparently Leviathan is female in this one, which, I mean...
That's fairly even split on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of amusing considering the last Leviathan I really think of was literally a king and noted as such.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm getting the impression that most of our deep sea creatures are female, like with this and the Penguin Queen thing.
Oh yes, that makes sense. And of course, Ferris's little sea monster buddy is definitely female.
That's just canon. The other thing I can think of when I think of FF8 and Leviathan is that was seemingly the Guardian Force animation they had finished when they put the demo in with Brave Fencer Musashi.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Because, like, that demo has Squall, Zell, and Renoa. Renoa is not in that scenario in the final game.
Yes.
But He is the only one equipped with a Guardian Force, and it's just Leviathan. I guess that's just the one that was finished.
It's easy to make a water snake.
That demo's got a lot of other interesting weirdness about it. One of my favorites is that it has some early translations, up to and including Squall's Limit Break, which they actually translated the name of, and then they untranslated it in the final game, because it turns out when you translate it, it just sounds stupid.
What was that?
In the final game, it's Renzo Kuken.
Right.
In the demo, it's just called Continuous. And it's like accurate, but sounds really stupid. Yeah, I love demos just for like the weird insights they can give you into like what wasn't finished when this build was made. I've sadly never played the FF7 demo that came with, I think, Tobal number 1. I have Tobal, I just never played the demo because I hadn't gained this appreciation when I had Tobal number 1.
Tobal number 1 is incredible for VM box art alone, with needs nothing else.
Oh man, just that shitty blurred CG man. Why would people want to see Akira Toriyama art when we can have a shitty blurred CG man?
Mm.
The beginning of the partnership between Square and Dream Factory that would end with the sad divorce that was the Bouncer.
I'm glad we're getting back on the Bouncer. This really needs to turn into a
You're
Bouncer.
You're gonna have to do with the Bouncer.
We will never escape the Bouncer.
We will never escape Dog Street. Just call the stream that.
That actually might work for a name. I mean, like, I've been thinking, like, you know, we are nearing the end of World of Final Fantasy, which I have claimed for, like, weeks now. But
every time we're Xeno's paradoxing to the end of this.
Yes. But regardless, like, I do, like, maybe, like, rather than something lame like Tuesday night streams, like, you know, just call it Dog Street. We will never escape Dog Street.
I'm always destroyed whenever I look at, like, that one, I think it's, like, what's his name? I think it's, Pence in Kingdom Hearts that has the
Yes,
Street.
Yes. And it was just kind of like, why? It's like an epitaph.
Someone remembered and was like, oh, let's just throw it at bomb. We're never gonna put Sion Barzon in this game. Hey, Zeph.
Oh, I still can't see the chat. Okay, weak to lightning.
Amen. Hello. And congratulated you.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, no, it's been a fun week.
Busy week.
Yes. I mean, like, you know, wedding in the age of COVID, just getting, like, I had so many older people who were like, oh, you're the groom, all you have to do is show up, and I just felt like being like, Grandma, you did not have to manage your own stream. It's like this.
It was a very beautiful stream. I have to say that.
It did come together well, but it was a lot of, like, in a matter of...
way better than my stream.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is you're reliant on the venue, and unless, like, the venue is where you live, you kind of just have to hope for the best with a lot of things working out, like, you know, a Wi-Fi network and whatever. And oddly enough, since we did it it was obviously at a courthouse, and I feel like if we had done it opposite, like, everything legitimately functioning like a courthouse, there would have been issues, but luckily we were doing it while literally there were 5 people in the building, so there wasn't much internet usage there. So that worked out well, at least.
So I'm just going to say right now that if I were both much more on the ball and much more cruel as a human being, my wedding present to you would have been a copy of Ready Player 2.
Why would you do that? I mean, as I've seen, the sex scenes online alone are enough to get us all demonetized.
Wait, there are sex scenes in Ready Player 2?
There's more like a lot of references to sex scenes. He doesn't really describe things.
There was
But
that
the
one.
descriptions were hellish.
There was just that nonsense where he makes a comment like, after giving both of our virginities to each other, we decided the next day that we like sex. It was something just equally as
No,
ridiculous.
you forgot the fact that it ends on a Depeche Mode reference.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Turns out that we enjoy fucking.
Yeah,
Who would have
like
guessed?
revelations.
All of the like that book, every excerpt I've seen is just this hellishly damning indictment of the author. It's like a long confession of the crime you didn't commit, but you're like giving like a long description of like the crimes you wished. So
So that's fun too.
Like really, the nerd porn auteur thing should
Nerd
live
porn
forever
auteur
in
is
infamy.
still the most, like, one of the the thing that makes you like rethink the concept of sex entirely.
It
There
really
was get
does.
around this.
The thing that always blows my mind about it is that he genuinely appears to believe that he thinks he's one of the good ones. That he is that in fact his writing this thing is him drinking deep of the respect women juice.
God.
There's a paragraph in this fucking book where he's talking about like, I was disgusted by this 50-person VR sex orgy. In comparison to that, my cyber stalking my ex-girlfriend was quite fine.
You can't parody that.
I know, like
You
every time I see
absolutely
someone
can't.
parody thing, it's like this is nowhere near as just awful as the thing that's actually in it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have a friend who, like, kind of vaguely defends it, and as he said earlier today, it's like, this, nobody would care if it wasn't about nerd stuff, but it's just basically like every other terrible, like, romance novel out there that it's not written to be anywhere near good. It's just written for somebody to, like, pass the time on the beach, possibly, you know, thinking of
It's
other
something
things.
that got way too big for its actual merits.
Yes, exactly.
But
And
it's
it's
also
like,
one of
I
those
get
things
that.
where every single one of us is also actively dealing with like either knowing this kind of person or having been this kind of person at some stage.
And sometimes
It's one
simultaneously.
of those scenarios where you see it and you recognize it and you hate that you recognize it. The fact that you recognize it is deeply upsetting.
I'm in this
On a
post and I
visceral
hate it.
level. I'm in this post and I don't like it.
Zeph mentioned having live tweeted the Ready Player One movie this summer. And the defining moment at the time was when the protagonist said, "I'm not disappointed" at his love interest when seeing her IRL for the first time. That was a thing. I listened to a podcast of people reading through the original not that long ago, and all I could think of, like, one of the things that they kept harping on was how, like, horrendous it was that, like, the protagonist is, you know, that since so much of it is in this fucking virtual world, he's constantly, like, in this fake avatar, you know, that looks nothing like himself, but he's constantly talking about how he's absolutely sure his love interest looks exactly like her avatar. And then, like, at the end, it turns out, yes, she does. She just has a small birthmark that he considers himself quite magnanimous to have overlooked.
Wow.
God. You know, my favorite part of... you'll forgive me, I haven't actually read the book before.
Nor have I. Like I said, I just listened to this podcast of people reading through it. And,
That's a good
they
thing.
went
That's not
into
a bad
detail of things they read.
But I definitely watched the movie because I kind of felt like it was required. And,
I
like...
don't think you have to.
well,
But
fair
like,
enough.
honestly, the movie is the sort of like thing where you could actually fix it because you could just get rid of all the shit that doesn't work.
I feel
what
like...
the entire purpose of
By all
adaptation
accounts,
is.
it did fix some things, just not enough.
And it also put in, like, its own problems.
Yeah.
Like, there's an entire The Shining section that's just kind of like, hey, remember The Shining?
Which, I mean, is most of the book, but I mean, the book I don't think I'd ever actually seen a horror movie. But yeah, I mean, like, while I was listening to excerpts from the book, all I could think of is, like, there is infinite space here to write a book about how this like insane billionaire narcissist has created like a giant like totem to his own childhood. Totem's not a good word for this. I apologize for using that.
Totem,
Fetish
totem's good
seems
enough.
appropriate.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm removing totem because of its racial connotations rather than anything else.
I wasn't aware totem had explicit racial connotations.
I have occasionally, like, I only ever hear it in a religious sense used with native religions, and that's why I'm doubling back on using it. I should not.
I suppose totemic is, yeah, that makes sense.
So-
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, so
Well, then what's a word for like an icon? I guess icon would be the
yeah, like
What's the word for an icon?
He built up this giant icon for his but yeah, like he's built up this giant icon of like his own childhood, and like there's so much space to critique the idea of like that this guy's childhood is being forcibly pushed onto generations decades and decades after any of it was culturally relevant. And this idea of any, like, you could use that to critique pop culture that seems relevant now as like this idea of like people being forced to look at it and like not giving a shit or hating it. But the protagonist just unapologetically adores all of it. Just has no critical insight into any of it. It's just like, all of this was incredible. I love silver spoons.
And the thing is,
I've seen every episode of Who's the Boss.
the entire point of Ready Player One, and I'm sure this is where you're going, is that ultimately he is like infinitely rewarded for it.
Yeah, like the final test he has to go through is recite every line in Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
But every single
Yes,
like
he has to sit through the entire movie and recite every single line.
that's just tragic.
That is the second time he has been put into a position where the test is recite every single line from a movie. The first time it's War Games. And it's just like...
I mean, like, I could probably recite at least a third of Monty Python without really trying that hard, because, you know, it's Monty fucking Python's classic. But War Games?
Yeah,
That was
War Games.
Okay, well,
Well,
all right then.
But
In
like,
that
the
case,
entire
I
thing-
think the best way to win would be to not play at all.
Oh,
There we go.
man, I see what you did. But yeah, like, it's just... That's the entire thing. There is never, like, any attempt to... like, I feel like it's weird to even call, like, the amount of... Like, copyright and trademark are, like, way too strong at destroying smaller creators and shit. I am shocked that there was nothing that could be or was done against this book, because so much of the time it's just like, hey, this thing, it looked exactly like that thing from that book or that movie.
Well, I feel like part of that is sort of... I feel like it's a snake eating its own tail, because it basically... Like, since it so adores absolutely everything, everybody kind of probably figured that they were getting just basically free advertising out of it.
Yeah,
Like, if
like,
it was critical about, say, I don't know, Disney, then it would have been, like, squashed in 5 seconds. But since it's like, everything that's ever been copyrighted is the best thing ever, I can see how people were like, we'll leave this be.
That's fair. That might have actually protected it. I feel like the thing... And there's so many things about it that was hellish, but I feel like every time I heard something that just completely drove me up a wall, of all things, it was like, one, the idea that there's like a presidency of this fucking virtual world game, and two, that the president and vice president are Cory Doctorow and fucking Will Wheaton. Also, this takes place in the 2040s. Like, they would both be well into like their 70s, if not 80s.
Well, legitimately, if you're looking at current
Like,
presidents.
legitimately,
Yeah.
presidents, yeah, that's typical age range.
I just think, like, I'm just imagining the concept of, like, of anyone still caring about who Will Wheaton is in 2040.
Did he actually play the president in the movie?
I don't know.
Oh,
He read the audiobook.
interesting to find out.
Interesting, if true.
I mean, I feel like that's the way to do it, is be like, you'll still be relevant in 60 years.
Oh, man. But yeah, it's just... Like, anytime it becomes this, like, long car crash of references, which is most of it, but seriously, just... The thing that I first saw was for Ready Player 2 was, of course, the prologue, which immediately turned into 3 different pop culture references built around numbers. I forget what...
Oh, yes, I remember. That 42 is in there.
42, the 13th floor, based off of a very, like... There are a million things that could be 13th floor, but apparently it was some sort of, like, cyberpunk movie reference or some shit.
And then also it was the 8675789 or whatever that song is.
9 or something like that.
Wait,
yeah.
Jenny's number from the bathroom stall?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Like, that's the sort of, like, reference that just is one of those cases where you just didn't think at all before you did what you did.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's an excellent description of the situation.
But yeah, like, I love reading it, like, not reading it, but, like, seeing the excerpts, because they give you such in such a specific, but that...
You know exactly how stunted this dude is. You know he's exactly
it's more
the
like,
sort
it's
of
just...
like old young Gen Xer / old millennial who is absolutely obsessed with that 3-year period between 9 and 14 and will do anything to reclaim it.
Like that very specific, like the fact that there's no attempt to disguise the idea that it's just very my childhood, only my childhood.
Only my childhood.
Like, all these kids in 2040, they fucking love the ColecoVision.
Yeah.
What a horrible thing to say.
I spent hours and hours playing Joust. And it's like, man, no kid in 2020 is playing Joust. 2040, fuck off, not happening.
How old is the actual author?
Ernest Cline, you can guess exactly when he was born.
I'm going to say 1983.
Nope, too recent.
Yeah, I was about to say that'd be too old.
Wait, really?
Or too young.
1985?
72.
1985?
Yeah,
72.
He needs to have like
because he needs
feelings
to
about
have
the Atari.
For the
most formative years of his childhood had to be the 80s.
Yeah, like very specifically like the early to mid ones to care that much about the ColecoVision. But yeah, suffice to say, this man turns 50 in 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Will be unimaginably wealthy for the rest of his life.
I mean, can you imagine, like...
Fucking loaded.
I cannot imagine writing any book and then having Steven Spielberg attached to it. Like...
Yeah.
Like, that is just amazing. Like, just the very concept.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
it's
like,
one
that's
thing,
insane.
like, oh, they're making a movie, but, like, it's being directed by, you know, Steve. It's like, who's Steve? Just Steve.
You know, Steve.
You know, Steve. He's been looking for a project for a while. But no, this is Steven Spielberg. It's like, holy crap.
It's like, you know, the director of many of the things referenced in this.
Yeah, not coincidentally, likely.
But, yeah, oh man. I do remember, I just saw someone getting furious about the movie again on Twitter because it was just like because they just gift the scene where they show like the Iron Giant blowing shit up and it's like, fuck off.
Apparently we get a bonus like task if you're paying attention to the game at this point, since we're all just talking about Ready Player One.
I can't believe this bonus cast is about Ready Player One.
It's like we'll get demonetized for all new and exciting reasons.
Seth agrees that Iron Giant shit and probably the scene around it was the worst part.
I mean, it's simultaneously, like, if you don't think about it, like, the entire movie is, if you don't think about it for 3 seconds, it's the best part. And then you think about it, you're like, this is a terrible idea.
I think
Did anybody understand the movie at all?
I think the thing that from that podcast I took away was, like, there's a thing about, I think they described it as having, like, the energy of something like Axe Cop if it didn't have the charm of having been written by a 5-year-old.
An appropriate description. Also, what's currently happening on the screen is we finally found Shiva's male doppelganger. Chivalry.
I was hoping he would be called Hiva.
Now that is disappointing.
I mean,
apparently he's like a Power Ranger joke as opposed to Shiva just being like a bikini babe.
They should have made him just a man wearing the Shiva outfit.
I mean, like, where are the balls on these people?
Seriously.
Like, give the people what they want, and that's like, what's the expression that I keep seeing on Twitter? Himbo? Give us Himbo Shiva.
Himbos are having a moment on Twitter.
What's that word the kids are saying nowadays?
I'm not even sure if that's like entirely like the youth thirst. That feels as much like the ongoing millennial thirst as well.
Yeah, that's just the way it is right now.
Yeah, like I said, they're having a moment.
Change. I believe Kane recently decided that I was our not only the Outer Heaven chat group's wife guy, but also the Outer Heaven chat group's himbo.
It's understandable. You can.
I mean, that's how you get to be a wife guy.
Kind of a weird, like, double billing, if you ask me, but hell, I'll take it.
I don't know, it kind of works. Like, normally the wife guy is defined by his love for his wife, and the himbo is supposed to be kind, so those two concepts coexist.
And the himbo is generally also devoted to a woman, so, like, devoted not in a romantic way, but just, like, devoted. I always think of the, what's the character from...
I am devoted in a romantic way. I am married.
Well, that's the thing. It can be two things.
Yeah,
what is
you're multi-class.
Fair enough.
What is it? Crunk from Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, that guy. Oh, yeah, no, he's the archetype. He's the prototype.
Yes, that is the himbo.
He's hardly the prototype, but he is very much a representative symbol.
Yeah, he is the template.
Okay, so male Shiva is a lot more boring than female Ifrit, I have to say.
It's almost like they cared less.
Yep.
It's like, go.
No,
figure.
why would they do that?
I can't even imagine.
Putting less effort into the one they weren't horny for? That's just crazy.
I don't know, man. That just seems out of character. I could be playing Yakuza Like a Dragon right now.
Nope, you're watching Final Fantasy.
But you're not.
I could be summoning, like, random dudes to hit people from my, like, my work for hire app. They put in a work for hire app called Pound Mates. Everyone in the game immediately misinterprets what Pound Mates is for.
I can believe that.
Can you blame them?
No, not at all.
Fucking blame them.
They were right to make the entire basis of the sub-story that unlocks them being about, like, someone misinterpreting it, calling them, being like, what are you doing here? I came here to help you fight. Then he beats up a bunch of Yakuzas that try to mug you.
Makes a certain amount of sense.
Yeah, everything about that game sounds pretty amazing, and I really want to get through my backlog of 70 other games.
It's real good. It's real good.
Like, what was the origin of that? Because I've heard it's got, like, a crazy number of Dragon Warrior references.
So, originally, like all the Yakuza games, had action-based combat, and then in like April of 2018 or 2019, I can't, probably 2018. Like the last about a year before it came out, in that April, they put out a joke that was like, because they hadn't shown gameplay of it yet. It was like, oh, what if Yakuza 7 was a turn-based RPG with party members and all that? And their expected response was, haha, that's a good joke. But they got a lot more responses were, haha, that's funny, I would really like to see that. So then they, like, rapidly, like, rejiggered the content they had to work as a turn-based RPG. And they, like, to contextualize the protagonist, who was born in the late 70s and would have been a child who grew up playing Dragon Quest, the implication for why the battle system is the way it is that he just sees the world through the lens of Dragon Quest. Like, after the first... Okay.
Yeah, no, that sounds good, honestly.
Like, every time... Like, when you first finish the first combat, like, one of his friends is like, hey, are you like a masochist or something? Because every time you hit someone in a fight, you sit back and you wait for someone to hit you back. He's like, no, I'm a hero, like Dragon Quest. I don't just attack people. I give them their shot. It's like Dragon Quest. And then, like, they just lean into that. So, like, there's a bit early on in the game where he finds, like, where he and his party find, like, a bat stuck in the ground, and they all take turns trying to pull it out. And he, of course, successfully pulls it out, so that's his weapon. He's the hero. That's when his... Because, like, his job class at the beginning of the game keeps changing, because, yes, the game has job classes. So at first he's, like, Yakuza, and then he's, like, ex-Yakuza, and then he's, like, I think he's deadbeat for a bit. But then at that point, his like, base job class becomes hero. And, like, that job class causes enemies that you get into fights with to, like, change form into, like, more varied-looking enemies when you... fight them, so that the game can have some more variety in its combat. But you'll get some real, like, some real weird enemies. One of my personal favorites I've seen so far are dudes that are just wearing trash bags.
I mean, sure, why not?
Their class is just labeled pseudo-trash. And, like, every so often, they'll try, instead of attacking you, they'll just, like, fish around in the trash bag to see if there's something they can throw at you.
Can't believe we finally made good on the promise of the trash man.
I'm the trash man. But
rubbish.
There's some truly incredible ones in there. There's some things in the enemy list that are very at odds with some of the things the narrative is trying to do, in particular with regards to homeless people, and that's a shame, but
I can see that.
It's the game, like, narratively, it's still trying to do more with humanizing homeless people than most any game I've ever played, but at the same time, that doesn't erase the fact that you'll fight enemies with labels like hungry, hungry, homeless.
So, oh dear. Oh dear.
Yeah, that's problematic.
Yeah, it cuts back and forth. I do like the setup that they kind of have for the main character himself as, like, this character who is, like, who is best associated with, like, most allied with, like, the most downtrodden people in society. So, like, the people you immediately ally with are homeless and sex workers and, you know, undocumented immigrants. Those are the people that you are working with. Those are the people you are trying to defend. So it's like their heart, I think, is in the right place, but they didn't actually think through some things.
Yeah, no, it makes
that's one of those, like, that's one of those areas where their heart's in the right place. Their head might occasionally be up their ass.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that if that is something you can get past, everything I've seen so far has just been really fun. There's this incredible bit early on where, like, you get this side quests where you can improve your personality traits, which are used to like determine how easily you get affected by most status effects. So things like if your character is calmer, then you will be less likely to be affected by enemies attempting to enrage you, that sort of thing. But it like involves you going to a vocational school, and the start of it is you get approached by an English speaker who's like asking you for directions to the train station in English. And it's a very pitch perfect indication, like by a Japanese developer, joke of the idea of Japanese person who knows just enough English to sort of keep a conversation going, but doesn't fully understand what they're being asked. And like, if it wasn't a Japanese writer, I would be very uncomfortable with it. But from a Japanese writer, it's like, oh, this is actually a pitch perfect joke. But yeah, that also, I'm waiting for a friend of mine who's playing with the English voice acting to actually tell me how that sounds in English, because it's a joke that feels very tailored to the idea of the main character speaking Japanese, the other guy is speaking English.
I mean, I would assume they just use some other language?
No! From what I've heard, they do not.
Interesting.
Very curious.
I mean, like, they could just go with French, but no, I don't think they will.
I mean, it's not like they can pretend that the game's not taking place in Japan, where everyone would be speaking Japanese.
I mean, I've definitely seen animes where they do that with, like, Spanish or something, just to make it clear. They do, but it's at the certain point where, like, I feel like the Yakuza localization team has been, like, top of the heap for quite a while at this stage, and I would be shocked if they didn't have a weirder or like, more interesting way around it. I guess we'll see.
We'll find out one of these days.
But yeah, big fan. More interested in what's happening in that than what's happening in this. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, so basically what's happening here is we're trying to get our mascot back. And, like, we're just constantly reviewing what happened. Like, at least now we're doing some visiting old locales. Because, I mean, like, the thing that kind of bothered me so far about the post-game is that it's like, oh, you should have collected the important 7 summonses. How will we ever do that?
All the library cards, essentially.
Yeah, that's it exactly.
The library cards are one of the best jokes I've ever seen in a video game.
Oh yeah, no, that's perfect. Just, you didn't get all the library cards.
There aren't any there's only one library card in the game, but fuck you, find the other 4.
But yeah, this is a situation where they're like, you didn't find what you're supposed to find, and then after you're told that, then they're just options on a menu then they weren't options before.
Yeah, you don't get to give a lecture about how you should have found these when it was impossible to find them.
Yeah, and it's not even like you then go searching. It's like, well, click here, stupid.
They were right here the whole time.
Yeah, it's like, did you want to fight Leviathan? Here he is.
You know, just chilling.
Like, I'm rather glad we did wind up going through all the intervention quests before we finished the game, because we went through all of them. But now apparently somebody's aunt got killed.
Oh no, not somebody's aunt. Anybody but someone's aunt. Take me instead.
Beloved FF3 character, Refia.
FF3 DS.
Yeah. And they just sort of pretended that the Onion kids had names, but then, like, forgot that any of them were supposed to have a personality about an hour in. It's a very half-hearted gesture.
Oh, incidentally, I don't know if it was addressed, but I believe Zeph in the chat last week if there were any other Echoes of Time or whatever characters, and here's one.
Okay.
Crystal Chronicles.
Yeah. We found one just for you. Zeph, I hope you're happy.
I mean, I might even be remembering the chat wrong, but I remember looking at it afterwards and being like,
we
oh,
went
well,
to
here's
such
Charlotta.
great lengths to get you this. You're welcome.
Put Sion Barzad in.
Oh, hey. Don't worry about me.
Okay, so we're gonna fight a fox somewhere around here? Oh, I guess we're gonna have an additional cutscene to explain things.
It should be an icicle ridge. There's a path, separate from the one that leads to
Oh, it looks like we're finally going to get like an actual dungeon, or maybe not. I don't know.
That says, I asked if there were Crystal Chronicles characters, but I guess Echoes of Time is a Crystal Chronicles game. Yeah,
Yes.
it's one of the DS spin-offs that kind of plays like Diablo. There's more than one DS spin-off for some reason.
Push myself too hard.
Boo.
Bum, 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 bum.
So I guess the dungeon they decided needed a reprisal was the ice one? Okay.
That makes perfect sense. There are, in fact, no dungeons better than the ice one. The ice dungeon is always the best dungeon. And
Yeah,
anybody who says otherwise is a liar.
I feel you may have to call me a liar in that case, because lordy do I hate ice dungeons.
I was actually lying myself.
Uh-oh.
I don't give a shit about ice
The
dungeons.
rare double cross. Why would you misrepresent your feelings on dungeons?
Because I'm evil like that. I'm bad. I'm the bad boy.
over here.
You're the bad boy himbo wife guy.
Yeah, all the above, bitch.
Just really stacking.
Checking every single box.
I like in this case that Rifia is just going to stand there and not actually help in any way, despite being a Final Fantasy character.
He doesn't like helping.
She.
She, whatever. I'm
Like
not paying attention.
She was the one onion kid that they were like, oh, we made 3 of them boys. One of them will be a girl.
Also, I like now
One of
that
them can't.
I was just going to say that now that we're technically facing characters from like the 3rd dungeon, and we were maxed out then, and now we're even more maxed out. It's like plink and then 12 billion HP damage. Take that.
Zev asked something about Crystal Chronicles, but I
Yeah, I
refreshed
brought
my
that up.
window. Okay,
Yeah, I
good.
brought that up.
I would literally hit refresh and then looked over the chat and was like, oh, Zev said something. It's gone forever for me.
It's
I'll never
ruined.
see it again. It's never gonna... It's lost to the void. I will be right back.
I'm definitely not looking up information on how the job system like a dragon works.
Don't you hate it when you're playing a video game you're enjoying and then you like have to even interact with another video game?
Why would I even interact with this video game?
Is that Refia? And you? Hi,
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
once again, I feel the pull of destiny.
I cannot believe we're actually revisiting this like loser Bahamutian soldier who like existed in chapter 7 and like really wasn't worth revisiting.
But this flesh I left belonged to the human you so lovingly called Time.
Like this was not a plot that I thought was worried.
Could be.
I mean, like, let's finally reveal what happened to Rifia's uncle.
Monster! Is that what you consider?
Nah.
Oh no. Those are the rules of this world. The human body is
Rifia's just off to the side, kind of sad about this. Maybe zoning out.
You will answer my question. Why do I
No.
enmity for
No, not even one.
Sad little Funko.
body you're camping out in? His rifle.
Sad little Funko,
You
don't
look
you?
at that fox and feel hatred for it? It means his memory? No. His soul still lives on inside of you.
That's absurd. No trace of him could
Dear
remain.
God, like, they're really hanging on this whole plot thing on, like, a character that's seriously named Bahamutian Soldier. It's like, here, the important story of Grunt B.
It's the best way to grieve your dead uncle. Tilt your head and mow. Thanks,
Another twist of fate. Is one of the resulting kinks.
So why do we need to do this exactly?
We're trying to convince the black fox to give lives to our white fox that is very dead.
Is that the mascot that we had before?
Exactly.
I don't want him back.
All right, I'm back. Who's this douchebag?
Bahamian
Bahamian
soldier.
That is such a terrible name, and I dislike it very much. I'm not okay with it.
We've had
I wish it would
Bahamutian
stop.
for quite a while. It's a shame.
Yeah, it's the Bahamutian army.
Wait, the army of Bahamut?
One of the Bahamets, apparently. There's at least one Bahamet who's vaguely jet-shaped who's on our side.
Okay, so plain Hamut.
Yeah, I think this game has established that all summonses are like individual creatures, but they're of their own species. So like, there's a bunch of different Leviathans across different games, but they're all like cousins.
They had 70 different Leviathans, but they're
Yes.
all Leviathan.
Yes. And like, I mean, we already got a Bahamut and it had like a secret name of like Joey Joe Shabadoo or whatever the heck.
JoJo.
Joey Jojo Junior Shabadoo.
I can't believe Final Fantasy was a JoJo all along. Summons were just stands. Everything's a lie.
Oh, those things are actually high level. Okay. I guess we are actually experiencing something like a dungeon now.
Jump
No.
up and you can't close away.
I see what you're doing.
Nope, not
I'm
really
powerless
much of
to
a
stop
dungeon.
you.
Don't teach and a can
This the culprit we're after, Seraph?
be
Well,
your
it does look exactly like
okay.
Tama does in her more regal form.
All right, then let's imprison it.
Oh, but don't forget that it has multiple lives. Now, forget about him.
Very same.
So, after tracking down this thing, we're just going to beat it up like every other creature.
No.
I know,
don't
it's
believe
shocking that in a game where there's repeatedly the fight command, all you do is use the fight command. Or I guess attack.
Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose, but all I want to do is fight.
At least he has cool rainbow attacks.
Yeah.
Tonberry stabbed it, but good.
Tom Berry stabbed the shit out of it.
Also, I
No.
very deliberately have not put a Moogle in my party, even if it isn't part of my stacks. Figured it was due.
It was like a cheat. Should never use a Moogle. Moogles are bad.
I wonder if the search engine of choice in Final Fantasy is Moogle.
You just cut out super hard, and I.
No, you'd be
know what
happier
you
for
said.
that.
All right, cool, awesome.
I kind of assumed that since Moogles are all about, like, selling stuff, they'd definitely be, like, the Amazon comparable version in Final Fantasy games.
Oh,
I mean, they're
God.
also the Mognet, though.
I mean, that's true. Well, obviously, like, Moogles started with what was essentially Final Fantasy Hotmail. But then they graduated to, like, this entire commerce thing.
Not ready for e-commerce featuring Moogles.
M-commerce.
I forget. Do Moogles like live significantly longer than humans, or are they just like human comparable?
Unclear.
I think Moogles are just, like, balloons that have mouths.
Okay, sure, fair. No, that makes sense.
Remember the FF3 ads where they tried to the FF3 US ads where they sort of tried to make Mog like a cool hip mid '90s mascot?
And never mind Cool Hip, he was like a murderous monster. He like destroyed everything in
was
Memory
cool
Serves.
in the 90s. Murder.
Like, things didn't show up
cool.
at Sonic the Hedgehog's door and he turned them to dust.
How to grow and fight.
And yet I'm
It's just a very strange commercial.
nothing at all.
No, I liked it that it kind of made... I mean, there was the commercial and there was also the GamePro advertising that had the ads where it was like, one page was like, don't you feel bad for him? It was all the monsters and Mog. And then the next page was just Mog was the last man standing. There were some good ads.
I like, every time I look at them, I'm like, oh, this is the worst things about the 90s that I want to forget.
No, the worst
It's like
thing about
that.
the 90s was the GamePro ad that had, like, some dude, just like up close on somebody's butt crack, and it was like an ad for Earthbound or something.
I was expecting you to say the TV ad where, like, a dude eats himself until he explodes.
Oh,
for
there
Yoshi's
is that
Island.
one, yes.
Isn't
That's
that
not-
90s
bit
ad for
from The Meaning of Life?
He is a strong girl.
Yes, that actually happened. Would you like a mint?
I suppose I should head over
Yeah.
and make myself useful.
You going on all fours?
Like I told you.
Yeah, they had no fucking idea how to sell Earthbound.
You know it.
I mean, and
Still
there was
don't, for that
also, I think there were a number of
Right.
ads for, like, Battle Arena Toshin Din about how sexy it was.
Oh, yeah, no, it was absolutely about how the Russian lady was going to step on you.
Step on me, hot evil lady.
The lady made of 150 polygons was going to step on you.
All 150 sexy polygons.
She's so
What
poignant.
could be sexier than an individual triangle floating in the void?
Pythagorean.
But like, I was gonna say, like, I've seen people like give shit over the Earthbound ads, but at the same time, this was an ad. These were ads that were going to be shown to children that had to sell something whose primary mood is nostalgia. So
Yes, this is
I can
true.
understand why that was essentially an impossible circle.
Oh yeah,
Square.
yeah, no. Nobody was winning that one. Like I said, I seriously can't blame them for not knowing how
I
the
mean,
hell to
I
sell that
feel
show.
like, and interestingly enough, my buddy Matt was not a JRPG fan and absolutely fell for Earthbound. And he's always pointed out that the main reason that was because so many JRPGs at the time were basically Lord of the Rings, and he could not stand Lord of the Rings. But something that
Fair.
was, like, based on a real world he could understand, like walking around a neighborhood using a baseball bat as a weapon, like, it was so natural, and I feel like that could have been their inroad, where it was basically like, I don't want to say like, hey, you are in the video game,
You Ness.
but yeah, but how, like, you know, you are fighting your way through the suburbs, I feel like they could have appealed to kids with that.
I think that's
And not just
possibly the way
resorted to
they-
fart jokes.
It's like, it's always going to be what tack are you taking in lying about what this game is about.
Fair.
Hello, Rain. Anybody home in there?
She finally
Oh
started
man.
playing.
Well, time to tell your friend to play Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Whoa, whoa.
Yes.
Another game where you wander around streets and hit people with a baseball bat.
Okay.
Also, I think
Oh,
for some
go
reason
ahead.
my favorite enemy class that I've seen. Oh, I was just gonna say, I think my favorite enemy class that I've seen in that is just labeled Punkling.
You was all.
What is
Punkling?
it?
Punkling.
I would assume a young punk.
Like a smaller punk. They're not particularly young. They don't look younger than the punk enemy class, but they're just called punklings, and I find that
They are smaller punks. They are a lesser punk.
lesser
They're not.
punk.
They have not grown to their full punk potential yet.
Wow. Also, I'm sad that the Foxman is back.
Yeah, apparently we just went through this whole crazy side quest just to get back to the status quo.
That's
Why
a
did we
shame.
bother?
We
Well,
were
because
happier when you
the
were
status
gone.
quo must be maintained.
That's disgusting. And I'm disgusted. You're all disgusted as well, even if you aren't saying it.
It's true. Oh yeah, I also really enjoyed wandering past a man in Yakuza who's talking about how if I let him join my party that he would like do wonders for my income taxes.
So that's interesting to say the least.
I figured it was time for a final battle.
Kinda cut that shit in half.
Okay, so we have officially now worked our way up to now we can go back and repeat the final battle, and hopefully everyone won't die.
I don't
Everyone
feel like
will
anything's
die.
actually changed. So
I mean,
sure.
that is the interesting thing. Well, I guess we now have...
The help of 4 summons you won't actually be using.
Yes, we've got like the dudes on our side who are all freaking level 1 because that's how this game works. And it's like, maybe I won't be using Leviathan for this fight, but he'll be with me, or she'll be with me in spirit.
I don't want her.
Over Leviathan. Just don't want anything to do with Leviathan anymore.
Listen, I've got enough fish helping me.
Okay, I've got like a Master Tonberry. It's like, who cares? Apparently there's a new quest we can do.
Don't fear, don't shed a tear.
Don't think we need that immediately. We can put Toma back on our team if we want like a level 30 monster I gave up on like 100 hours ago. There was something in one of the menus that it said I had won or something.
I sometimes think about the idea that a Michelin star rating is sort of like proof that you can just sort of declare yourself the expert at something and people will believe you at some point.
I mean, yeah, basically.
We make tires. Now these are the good restaurants.
Oh, that was... Have you heard the
I know
story
why that
behind
is, but it's still one of those situations where it's like, you can just say you're good, you're the expert at something. And
Oh no, they
people
were
might
legitimately the experts. They did it the hard way.
They did it the hard way, but they also just sort of said that you should believe them on that. The fact that they turned out to be trustworthy does not take away from the statement I am making.
They turned out to be trustworthy.
Like, I'm not gonna like have you saying, "Oh, the Michelin tire guys aren't actually restaurant connoisseurs," because they are.
They are.
want
I'm
to
just
be,
saying that
but they were.
the fact that they turned out to be trustworthy is immaterial to my point.